The apartment in Santa Monica never felt so empty. Caroline slid her fingers across the cool screen of her laptop, scrolling through her sister's blog for the 100th time. Photos of Leah, smiling in the Marrakesh souks, floated on the screen. Like digital ghosts, each pixel charged with a joy that now sounded like a silent farewell. The scent of cold coffee hung in the morning air, mingling with the salty ocean breeze drifting in through the slightly open window. 6 months. 6 months since the last sign of life from Leah, since that video where she appeared radiant, her brown hair dancing in the desert wind, promising her followers an adventure like nothing you've ever seen. Caroline closed her eyes and let the memory carry her back to that September morning, when she still believed Leah was just on another one of her impulsive adventures. She remembered her sister's excited tone on the phone 3 days before her disappearance. "Caroline, you won't believe it. I met someone incredible here, a man unlike anyone I've ever known. He knows places that aren't even on tourist maps." Leah's voice now echoed in Caroline's mind like a distant reverberation, filled with an excitement that then seemed innocent, but now exuded a venomous unease. The apartment was filled with traces of her missing sister. Books on Eastern cultures stacked in strategic corners, antique maps plastered on the walls, photographs from previous trips scattered across the coffee table. Caroline picked one up, Leah in Istanbul, posing in front of the Blue Mosque, her smile wide and her eyes shining with that insatiable thirst for stories that had always defined her. It was this passion for distant cultures that had taken Leah around the world since her 20s, always searching for something indefinable, something she called the truth hidden beneath the surface. Caroline felt her phone vibrate against the table. It was Mark, the boyfriend she'd put on the back burner since she decided to leave for Morocco. "There's still time to change your mind," the message read. "It's crazy to go alone." She typed a quick reply, "I can't abandon her," then deleted the words. Instead, she sent only, "I'll talk when I get back." She knew she was lying to herself. There was no guarantee she would return, and that morbid certainty had been with her since she bought the ticket. The flight to Casablanca departed in 8 hours. Caroline had sold her car, taken unpaid leave from her job as an editor, and emptied her savings account, all for a visceral intuition that Leah hadn't simply run off with a rich man, as the Moroccan authorities and even some family members suggested. Caroline knew her sister better than anyone. Leah was impulsive, romantic, a dreamer, but she would never cut contact with her family. She would never abandon the blog that had become her passion and source of income. She would never disappear without a trace, no matter how passionately in love she was. The police report lay open on the table, its pages yellowed from excessive handling. Leah Miller, 29, American, last seen at the Royal Mirage Hotel in Marrakesh, accompanied by Karim Al-Fayyad, a local businessman. The words repeated themselves in Caroline's mind like a sinister mantra. Karim Al-Fayyad. She had obsessively researched this man for the past few months, but the information was scarce and contradictory. Some sources described him as a respected gemstone merchant. Others suggested connections to shady businesses involving antiquities and historical artifacts. No clear photos, no fixed address, only shadows and whispers. Caroline packed the documents in her travel bag along with copies of Leah's latest social media conversations, detailed maps of Morocco, and a considerable amount of cash. She had learned that in certain parts of the world, information had a price you couldn't pay with a credit card. She also carried something more intimate, the silver necklace Leah had worn since adolescence, with a crescent moon pendant. "For good luck," her sister had said before leaving for Morocco, leaving the jewel on her bedroom dresser. Now, the cold metal rested against Caroline's chest like a talisman, or perhaps a curse. The taxi to the airport cut through the still sleepy streets of Los Angeles as Caroline received an unexpected call. It was Helen, Leah's best friend, her voice choked with anxiety. "Caroline, I need to tell you something before you leave. Last night I received a strange message on Instagram. Someone I don't know sent a picture of the desert with a caption, 'Some flowers weren't meant to be picked.' I thought it might be related to Leah." Caroline's heart pounded. "Did you save the message? Can you trace who sent it?" The account was deleted immediately afterward, but Caroline, there's more. In the last few days, other people who followed Leah's blog received similar messages, all related to the desert, all with a veiled tone of threat. Caroline closed her eyes, feeling the first shiver of real fear run down her spine. Until that moment, she had maintained a stubborn hope that she would find Leah alive, perhaps just lost in some torrid and inconsequential romance. But the anonymous messages suggested something far more sinister. Someone was watching. Someone knew she was going to Morocco. Someone wanted her to know that they knew. The plane took off under a leaden sky, and Caroline spent the long flight, hours, immersed in a frantic search on her laptop. She had discovered something the Moroccan police had apparently overlooked. Leah was not the first blogger to disappear in the region. In the last 3 years, at least 7 women with similar profiles, young, independent, with a significant presence on social media, had vanished after becoming involved with local men in cities like Marrakesh, Fez, and Essaouira. All were between 25 and 35 years old. All were foreigners attracted to Arab culture. All had posted about romantic encounters before simply disappearing from the digital world. Caroline had created a detailed spreadsheet with the names, dates, and last known locations of these women. The pattern was disturbing. Sarah, a German photographer, disappeared in Fez after meeting a charming antique dealer. Marie, a French artist, last seen in Essaouira with a local art collector. Eleanor, a Spanish writer, vanished in Marrakesh after posting about a life-changing encounter. All clues led to wealthy, cultured men connected to the luxury business world, and all seemed to have some connection, however tenuous, to Karim Al-Fayyad. The plane touched down on Moroccan soil under a scorching sun that turned the asphalt into shimmering waves of heat. Caroline felt the dry air burn her nostrils, heavy with unfamiliar scents. Spices, diesel, something indefinable that smelled of ancient history and buried secrets. Casablanca was just a layover. Her final destination was Marrakesh, where she intended to retrace Leah's last steps. At her chosen hotel, a traditional riad in the heart of the Medina, Caroline was greeted by Youssef, a young receptionist who spoke hesitant English. When she mentioned searching for her missing sister, the young man lowered his voice and nervously glanced around before whispering, "Many sisters look for sisters here. Not all find what they're looking for." That first night, Caroline barely slept. The room was permeated with a cloying, sweet perfume, rosewater mixed with something deeper, almost narcotic. Through the wooden shutters came the sounds of the night city. Motorcycles roaring through the narrow alleyways, Arabic voices echoing through the inner courtyards, the distant call to morning prayer. It all created an urban symphony that was both hypnotic and unsettling. The next day, Caroline began her investigation in the markets where Leah had posted her last photos. The spice souk was a sensory labyrinth of vibrant colors and intense aromas: cumin, cinnamon, saffron, mint. She showed her sister's picture to vendors, tourists, anyone who might have a memory. Most politely shook their heads, but Caroline sensed something in their gazes, a quick recognition followed by a defensive denial, as if speaking about certain things was dangerous. That's when she met Fatima, a rug seller of about 60, with dark eyes that seemed to hold secrets. When Caroline showed her Leah's photo, the woman was visibly disturbed. "Yes, I remember her. she murmured, glancing around before continuing. A pretty girl, always smiling, but there are things best left unsaid. Please, Caroline pleaded, feeling she had finally found someone with real information. She's my sister. I need to know what happened. Fatima hesitated, then gestured for Caroline to follow her to the back of the shop. There, among piles of Persian rugs and the sweet smell of incense, she whispered, "Your sister was always with him, the man with eyes of fire." Karim Al-Fayyad? Fatima's reaction was immediate. She recoiled as if she had heard the name of a demon. "Don't speak that name here," she said, her voice trembling. "There are ears everywhere." Caroline felt her blood run cold. "Do you know where he is? Where he took my sister?" "I don't know where they are now," Fatima replied, her hands trembling as she nervously rearranged the rugs. "But I can tell you this, he's not what he seems. None of them are. They come, they charm foreign women with promises of love and adventure, and then..." She made a vague gesture with her hand, as if dispersing smoke. "Then they're gone. Forever." "They? How many are there?" "A brotherhood. Rich, powerful men from different countries. Morocco, Egypt, Turkey, the Emirates. They've known each other for years. They share common interests." Caroline felt her stomach churn. "What kind of interests?" Fatima looked directly into Caroline's eyes, and in that moment the Americans saw genuine, profound fear. They believe certain women possess a special energy, a power that can be transferred. It's an ancient belief mixed with modern practices. They don't kill, that would be too simple. They make the women disappear in other ways. I don't understand. They're still alive, but they're not themselves anymore. They're kept in places where no one can find them, where their wills no longer belong to them. It's worse than death, because they know they're trapped, but they can't do anything to escape. Caroline left the rug shop with shaky legs and a racing heart. Fatima's words echoed in her mind like funeral bells. She spent the rest of the day wandering through the Medina, trying to process the information. Was Leah really alive, but imprisoned somewhere? The idea was both hopeful and terrifying. That night, back at the Riad, Caroline found an envelope that had been slipped under her door. Inside, there was a single photograph, the desert stretching to the horizon with golden dunes that looked like frozen waves. On the back, a message in elegant script. Some truths can only be found where the footprints disappear. Caroline felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. Someone knew she was there. Someone was watching her movements, but at the same time, the message seemed like an invitation or a carefully laid trap. She stayed up all night, planning her next move, knowing she was entering far more dangerous territory than she had imagined. The next morning, a gentle knock on the door woke her from a restless sleep. It was Youssef, the receptionist, with a worried expression. "Miss Caroline, there's someone here to see you. A man. He says he has information about your sister." Caroline went down to the lobby with her heart in her throat. There stood a man of about 40, tall and elegant, with tanned skin and piercing green eyes. He wore a white linen shirt and khaki trousers, like an archaeologist from an adventure movie. When she approached, he stood and extended his hand. "Caroline, my name is Imran Qasem. I'm an archaeologist from Cairo. I hear you're looking for your sister." Imran's voice was smooth, but there was something about it that immediately put Caroline on edge. Perhaps it was the way he looked at her, not just in the eyes, but as if he were studying every feature of her face, cataloguing her reactions. "How did you know I was here?" Caroline asked, not accepting the handshake. "Marrakech is a small city for outsiders seeking answers. Word travels fast." Imran smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "I may have information that interests you about Karim Al-Fayyad and others like him." Caroline felt a chill run down her spine at the mention of the name. "You know him?" "I know his reputation, and I know where he might have taken your sister." Where? Imran looked around the lobby, then leaned closer. This isn't a conversation for public places. If you want to know the truth about what happened to Leah, meet me tomorrow at dawn at the Hotel La Mamunia. Ask for me at the reception. Before Caroline could respond, Imran was already walking toward the exit. She rushed after him, but when she reached the street, the man had vanished into the Medina crowd, as if he had never existed. That night, Caroline had her first dream. She saw Leah walking through the desert dunes, wearing a white dress that billowed in the wind. Her sister looked back, her lips moving as if she were trying to say something, but no sound reached Caroline's ears. The scene was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Leah seemed to be running from something, but also being drawn by an invisible force that pulled her deeper and deeper into the desert. Caroline woke up with a racing heart and the feeling that the dream had been more than a product of her anxious mind. It was almost as if Leah were trying to communicate with her, sending a message through the veil that separates wakefulness from sleep. The Hotel La Mamunia was a luxurious palace that contrasted sharply with the modest riad where Caroline was staying. Lush gardens, ornate fountains, an atmosphere of understated wealth and elegance. Imran was waiting for her in the lobby, this time wearing a dark suit that made him look more like a businessman than an archaeologist. "Thank you for coming," he said, leading her to a secluded cafe in the hotel gardens. "I know you must be confused and scared. It's natural." "Get to the point," Caroline replied, her patience already exhausted by the mystery games. "What do you know about my sister?" Imran ordered 2 mint teas, then leaned back in his chair, studying Caroline with those intense green eyes. "First of all, you need to understand something. What I'm about to tell you could put your life in danger. There's still time to give up, go back to the States, and try to forget Leah ever existed." "Never!" I expected that answer. Imran smiled sadly. "Leah said the same thing when I warned her about Karim." Caroline felt the world spin around her. "You met my sister. You talked to her." "Yes, 3 days before she disappeared. I tried to warn her, but she was completely bewitched by Karim. She said she had found the love of her life and that nothing in the world would make her give him up." "Why didn't you tell the police? Why didn't you try to stop her?" "Because," Imran sighed, "I was also being watched, and because I knew that if I interfered directly, I would put other women at risk who might still be saved." Caroline felt tears burning in her eyes. "Is she dead?" "I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But I have a theory about where she might be." Imran leaned forward, lowering his voice. "There are places in the Sahara Desert, isolated communities that don't appear on any official map, places where people can disappear without leaving digital or physical traces. Are you talking about legitimate communities or something much more sinister? Karim is part of a group I've been studying for years. They call themselves the Guardians of the Sands. It's a combination of a religious sect and a criminal organization. They believe that certain women, especially those with social influence, intelligence, and beauty, possess a special energy that can be channeled to increase the power and wealth of chosen men." Caroline felt nausea rising in her throat. "How? So channeled? Through ancient rituals, psychological manipulation, and lately, the use of drugs that alter personality and will. The women don't die. They become different, obedient, without their own will." "And where does this happen?" Imran looked around, making sure no one was listening. "There's a community in the desert, about 200 kilometers from here, a place called Qasr al-Sarab, the Palace of Mirage. Officially, it doesn't exist. There are no roads leading to it. It doesn't appear on satellites. It's not in any government records." "How do you know about this?" "Because I've been there, and I almost didn't get out." Caroline studied Imran's face, looking for signs of lying or madness. But there was something in the way he spoke, a genuine fear mixed with determination that made her believe his words. "If this place is so dangerous, why are you telling me about it?" "Because," Imran replied, "I owe a debt to the women who disappeared, and because I believe you can be the key to exposing this whole operation." "How so?" "Karim and his associates don't choose their victims randomly. They study them, learn about their families, their connections. If Leah disappeared, it's likely. They know you would come looking for her. They may be using you as bait to attract other people, journalists, investigators, family members." Caroline felt a cold shiver run down her spine. "Are you saying I'm being watched?" "I'm saying your life's been in danger since you set foot in Morocco." Just then, as if summoned by Imran's words, a tall, elegant man appeared at the cafe. "Entrance." Caroline couldn't see his face clearly due to the distance and backlighting, but something about his posture made her stomach clench with fear. "We need to leave. Now," Imran murmured, leaving money on the table. "Who was that man?" "Someone who shouldn't be here." They exited through the gardens, taking a winding path amongst palm trees and ornate fountains. Caroline kept looking back, but the mysterious man had vanished. Or maybe he'd never been there. At that point, she couldn't distinguish between paranoia and genuine intuition. "Listen," Imran said when they reached the parking lot. "I'll give you a choice. I can put you on a plane back to the States today, or I can take you to the desert where we might find answers about your sister. But if you choose the second option, there's no guarantee we'll come back." Caroline closed her eyes, thinking of Leah, her sister's radiant smile in the last photos, the promise of an adventure that would change her life. She also thought about her own choices, the safe, predictable life she'd left behind in Los Angeles, the boyfriend waiting for her, the job she'd resume if she returned now. "When do we leave?" she asked. Imran smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, the smile seemed genuine. "At dawn, bring only the essentials, and Caroline." He gently touched her arm. "From tomorrow on, there's no turning back." That night, Caroline made her final preparations. She organized her documents, transferred her remaining money to an internationally accessible account, and wrote a long letter to her parents explaining her choices. She didn't send the letter. It would be a confession that she didn't expect to return. She was packing the last of her things into her backpack when she found Leah's necklace at the bottom of her bag. The crescent moon pendant shimmered in the dim light of the room, and Caroline felt a wave of longing so intense she had to sit on the bed to keep from collapsing. She put the necklace around her neck, feeling the cool metal against her skin. "I'll find her," she whispered to the empty room, "no matter what happens to me." That night's dream was different, more vivid, more real. Caroline was walking through the same dunes she'd seen before, but this time she could hear Leah's voice carried on the wind. "Caroline, don't come. It's a trap." The voice repeated like an echo, fainter each time, until it was lost completely. In the desert silence, Caroline woke up with tears on her face and the certainty that she'd made the right decision. Leah was alive, somewhere in that sea of sand, and she needed help. Imran was waiting for her in the lobby at 5 in the morning, next to a modified military jeep loaded with supplies. "Ready?" he asked, and Caroline noticed he'd used the plural. There was another person in the vehicle, a woman of about 50. Grey hair pulled back in a tight bun, blue eyes hard as stones. "This is Dr. Leila Bouchard," Imran explained, "a French psychiatrist. She studies the effects of mind control techniques used by the Sand Guardians." Leila extended a firm hand to Caroline. "I'm so sorry about what happened to your sister. I lost my own daughter to this group 2 years ago." Caroline felt a lump in her throat. "I'm so sorry. Did you manage to—" "No. Claire is still missing. That's why I'm here." The journey began at sunrise, with the jeep cutting through paved, roads that gradually gave way to dirt tracks, and finally, the pure sand of the desert. Caroline had never experienced such immensity, miles and miles of golden dunes stretching to the horizon, occasionally punctuated by rock formations that looked like ancient sculptures left by forgotten gods. The Sahara is not just a desert, Imran explained as he drove. It's a sea of time where the past and the present mingle. There are places here where tribes have lived in isolation for centuries, developing beliefs and practices that the outside world has never known. And the Sand Guardians originated from one of those tribes? Caroline asked. Not exactly, Layla replied from the back seat. It's more complex. Karim and his associates took elements from various ancient traditions, Berber shamanism, Sufi, rituals, pre-Islamic Arabian magic, and mixed them with modern techniques of psychological manipulation and chemical control. The result is a form of slavery that is simultaneously primitive and sophisticated. They stopped for lunch in the shade of a rock formation, sharing lukewarm water and dried dates. The heat was unbearable. Caroline felt the sand penetrating, every pore of her skin, the sweat evaporating before it could even form. But there was something hypnotic about the landscape, a brutal beauty that made her understand why Leah had been drawn to this world. How much further to Qasr al-Sarab? Caroline asked. About 6 hours, Imran replied, consulting a military GPS that seemed to be the only electronic device working in that region. But from now on, the journey becomes dangerous. There are patrols, traps, and other things. What other things? Layla and Imran exchanged a look. There are reports of people who got lost in this region and were found days later, completely changed, with no memory, no will of their own, repeating phrases in languages they didn't know. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to prepare you for what you might find, Imran replied seriously. What the Guardians do to their victims, it's not just kidnapping, it's a form of living death. They resumed their journey under the scorching afternoon sun. Caroline dozed intermittently, always waking with the feeling of being watched. On the few occasions when she looked back, she saw only dunes stretching endlessly, but the feeling persisted, as if the desert itself had eyes. It was late afternoon when they saw the first sign they weren't alone. Fresh footprints in the sand, heading in the same direction. Someone's following us, Imran murmured, checking the rear view. Mirror, or preceding us? How many people? Leah asked. 3, maybe 4. Men, judging by the size of the prints. Caroline felt fear crystallizing in her chest. They know we're coming? They always have, Imran replied. The question is what they intend to do with that information. The desert. Sunset was the most beautiful and terrifying spectacle Caroline had ever witnessed. The sky ignited in shades of orange, red, and purple, while the dunes transformed into waves of liquid gold. But there was something sinister about that beauty, as if it masked unseen dangers that would only reveal themselves in the darkness. They set up camp between 2 rock formations that offered some protection from the night wind. Leah prepared a frugal dinner of canned goods and water, while Imran checked their communication equipment. Nothing, he reported. From now on, we're completely isolated. Caroline ate in silence, watching the stars begin to dot the darkening sky. She had never seen so many stars, millions of luminous points creating a celestial dome that seemed close enough to touch. But the beauty of the spectacle couldn't dissipate the anxiety that grew in her chest with each passing hour. Tell me about your daughter, Caroline said to Leah, breaking the silence that had settled between them. Leah remained still for a long moment, her face illuminated by the flames of the small campfire they had lit. Claire was 27 when she disappeared. She was an artist, a painter. She was doing an artist residency in Cairo when she met a man named Rashid, rich, charming, with connections in the art world. The usual story. Did you try to stop her? Of course I did. But Claire was a grown woman, independent. She said she had found the inspiration she'd been searching for years. The last time we spoke, she was radiant, talking about a special trip she would take with Rashid. I'm going to see the world in a completely new way, Maman, were her last words to me. Caroline felt a pang of recognition. Leah said something similar. I'm going to experience the desert like nothing you've ever seen. They used the same words, the same promises, Imran added, feeding the fire with dry branches. It's part of the technique. They make the women believe they're about to experience something unique, transformative. And in a way, they are, just not in the way they imagine. How did you two meet? Caroline asked. You two, I mean. Leah contacted me a year ago, Imran explained. She had discovered my research on the Guardians of the Sands through an article I published in an archaeology magazine. She had theories about the mind control techniques they use, and I had knowledge of their bases of operation. And why did you become interested in this group in the first place? Imran was silent for so long that Caroline thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, he said, because they took someone from me too. Who? My wife, Nadia. Imran's voice was almost a whisper. She was a journalist, like your sister. She was investigating the trafficking of antiquities in Egypt when she disappeared. That was 3 years ago. Caroline felt a chill. 3 people, 3 different stories, but all connected by the same devastating loss. Do you think that the people we've lost are in the same place? It's possible, Leah replied. Based on our research, the Guardians operate several bases, but Qasr al-Sarab seems to be the main one. That's where they take the women they consider especially valuable. What makes them valuable? Social influence, intelligence, beauty, but mainly a certain, how can I explain, an inner light, something that attracts followers, that inspires trust and admiration. Karim and his associates believe they can absorb this energy and use it to increase their own power. Caroline unconsciously touched Leah's necklace around her neck. And does it work? Not in the way they believe, Leah said. But the process of trying to absorb this energy completely destroys the original person. It's a form of spiritual murder. They slept in shifts, each taking a 2-hour watch. During her watch, Caroline heard sounds she couldn't explain. Distant voices carried on the wind, engine noises that seemed to come from impossible directions, and occasionally, what sounded like music, a hypnotic melody that made her feel drowsy and disoriented. It was during Leah's shift that things started to get really strange. Caroline was awakened by whispers in Arabic coming from somewhere near the campsite. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding, but when she looked around, she saw only Leah sitting by the almost extinguished campfire, completely still. Leah? Caroline whispered. The woman didn't respond. She was staring intently at the desert, her lips moving slightly, as if she were having a silent conversation with someone invisible. Caroline cautiously got up and approached. Leah, are you okay? That's when Leah turned to her, and Caroline saw that the woman's eyes were completely white. There were no pupils, just a milky white that reflected the starlight unnaturally. They're waiting, Leah said, but her voice sounded different, deeper with an accent Caroline couldn't identify. They know you're coming. Caroline recoiled, tripping over a rock and falling into the sand. Imran! She yelled. Imran woke instantly, assessing the situation with experienced eyes. When he saw Leah, his expression became grave. Don't move, he said to Caroline, and don't look directly into her eyes. What's happening to her? Temporary possession. They use it to communicate through sensitive people. Leah has been through this before. Imran approached Leah slowly, speaking in Arabic in a calm and firm voice. The woman's eyes slowly returned to normal, and then she collapsed, as if held up by invisible threads that had just been cut. "Oh my God," Leah whispered, pressing her hands to her face. "It happened again." "What did you see?" Imran asked. Leah replied, looking directly at Caroline. "I saw her. She's alive, but Caroline, she's not the same. They did something to her, something terrible." Caroline felt the world spin. Where is she? In an underground chamber with other women, all wearing white dresses, all with the same vacant eyes. They know you're coming and they're preparing something. Preparing what? A ceremony. They're going to use you to strengthen what they did to Leah. They're going to make her hand her over to them. A wave of nausea washed over Caroline. Leah would never do that. The Leah you knew, no. But the person she's become, she'd do anything they command. They spent the rest of the night awake, tending the fire and keeping watch. No one mentioned Leah's episode again, but Caroline could see in Imran's eyes that he was worried. There was something he wasn't telling her, something about what really awaited them at Qasr al-Sarab. They left before dawn, following a nearly imperceptible trail marked by strategically placed stones. "We're close," Imran announced. Around midday, pointing to a rock formation on the horizon that resembled a ruined city. "That's Qasr al-Sarab?" "No, that's what they want us to see. Ancient ruins, an abandoned archaeological site. The real community is below." "Below?" Natural tunnels and caverns have been expanded over decades. It's a complete subterranean city with ventilation, solar power, even hydroponic gardens, completely invisible to satellites or aerial reconnaissance. A chill ran down Caroline's spine. The thought of Leah trapped in an underground labyrinth filled her with claustrophobia. "How do we get in?" "That's the tricky part," Imran admitted. "There's only one main entrance, and it's heavily guarded. But there's an emergency entrance, an old salt mine that connects to the tunnel system." "Where?" "About 2 kilometers north of the ruins. The problem is, to get there, we'll have to cross patrolled territory." They parked the jeep in a natural depression hidden by rocks and walked the rest of the way. The heat was unbearable. Caroline felt her skin burning even through her clothes, and each breath was like inhaling fire. But worse than the physical heat was the growing feeling that they were being watched. There, Imran pointed to an opening in the rock that looked like a geological accident. "That's where we go in." The entrance to the abandoned mine was a narrow fissure that descended at a steep angle. Imran switched on a flashlight and started down first, followed by Leah and Caroline. The air grew colder as they descended, but also heavier with something indefinable, a sickly sweet smell that reminded Caroline of wilted flowers and incense. "That smell," Caroline murmured. "Opium," Leah explained. "They use poppy derivatives as part of the control process. It keeps the victims in a state of constant docility." The tunnels were more extensive than Caroline had imagined. Kilometers of passages stretched in every direction, some natural, others clearly excavated. Walls of crystallized salt shimmered in the flashlight's beam, creating an environment that was both beautiful and sinister. "How do you know the way?" Caroline asked after 20 minutes of walking. "I've been here before," Imran replied. 2 years ago, when I was searching for Nadia, I managed to get in, but I couldn't get out with her." "Why?" "Because when I found her, she didn't want to come with me." Caroline stopped walking. "What do you mean?" Imran turned to her, and Caroline saw genuine pain in his eyes. She didn't recognize me, or rather she knew me, but she didn't care. She was completely changed, as if everything that made her Nadia had been erased and replaced by someone else. "But you said she was still alive." "She was, technically. Her heart beat, her lungs functioned, she walked and talked. But Nadia, the woman I loved, had died a long time ago." Tears burned in Caroline's eyes. What if Leah is in the same state? Then we'll have to decide what it really means to save her. They continued walking in silence. passing, empty chambers that seemed to have been used for storage, until they reached an area where the smell of opium became more intense. There were other odors too, food, perfumes, and something Caroline couldn't identify, but that made her feel nauseous. "We're close," Imran whispered. "From now on, absolute silence." They arrived at an opening that led to a vast natural cavern lit by torches and electric lamps. Caroline cautiously peered inside and saw something that took her breath away. It was a complete community. Dozens of people moved through the passages carved into the rock, some wearing modern clothes, others wearing traditional robes. There were hydroponic gardens, a library, even an area that seemed to be a temple or place of worship. But what most caught Caroline's attention were the women. They were everywhere, but there was something profoundly wrong with them. They moved with a mechanical grace, like dancers following an invisible choreography. All wore identical white dresses. All had their hair styled the same way, and all had the same vacant expression in their eyes. "Oh my God," Caroline whispered, forgetting the order of silence. "Shh," Imran warned, but it was too late. One of the women in white turned towards them, and Caroline saw that it was Leah. Her sister was unrecognizable. Her face was the same, but she was thinner, paler, and her eyes, the warm, expressive eyes Caroline knew so well, were completely dull. Leah looked directly at them, but showed no sign of recognition. Instead, she raised her hand and waved, a gesture that felt more like a signal than a greeting. "She saw us," Leah murmured. "We need to go. Now." But before they could move, torches flared throughout the cavern and men began emerging from the shadows. There were at least 10 of them, all clad in dark robes, all moving with the same coordinated precision as the women. "Welcome," a voice said in accented English. "We've been expecting you." A man separated from the group. He was tall with amber eyes, exactly as Caroline had pictured Karim based on the descriptions she'd heard. He smiled, and there was something about that smile that made her feel like prey being studied by a predator. "Caroline," he continued, "we finally meet. Your sister has spoken highly of you." Caroline tried to speak, but no sound came out. Leah approached, walking with that disturbingly mechanical grace. When she got close enough, Caroline could see something injected into her sister's arm, a small needle mark that looked recent. "Leah," Caroline managed to whisper. Leah tilted her head, as if listening to something only she could hear. Then she smiled. A smile that was both the one Caroline knew and something completely alien. "Caroline," Leah said, her voice sounding like a distorted recording. "You came just as I knew you would. Leah, it's me, your sister. You know me." "Of course I know you," Leah replied, still wearing that unsettling smile. "You're exactly what we needed to complete the circle." Karim stepped closer, placing a possessive hand on Leah's shoulder. "You see, Caroline, your sister has extraordinary energy, very rare, but you possess something even more special." "What?" "Love. Pure, desperate love. The kind of love that moves mountains, that drives a person across oceans and deserts to save someone. That kind of energy is invaluable." Caroline felt Imran tense beside her, preparing for some kind of action. But Karim made an almost imperceptible gesture, and more men emerged from the shadows, armed with military-looking rifles. "Don't do anything rash," Karim advised. "You made it this far because we wanted you to. Every step of the journey was carefully orchestrated." "You're lying," Caroline said, finally finding her voice. "Am I? Do you think it was a coincidence Imran showed up at your hotel in Marrakech? Or that Leah was available precisely when you needed a mind control expert?" Caroline looked at Imran and Leah, searching for denial in their faces, but what she saw was guilt and shame. "You," she began. "We had no choice," Imran said quickly. "They have Nadia. They have Claire. They threatened to kill them if we didn't bring you here. But why? Why me? Because, Karim explained, your sister resisted the process. Even after months of treatment, there was still a part of her that remained rebellious. We discovered that the only way to completely break her resistance was to bring her here, to watch her betray the person she loves most. Caroline felt the world crumbling around her. Leah would never do that. The Leah of before, no, but the Leah of now. Karim smiled. Show her, my dear. Leah turned to Caroline, and for the first time, Caroline saw a flicker of recognition in her sister's eyes. For a moment, the woman she knew was there, fighting against whatever they had done to her. Caroline, Leah whispered, her voice breaking. I tried to resist, but they... Shh, Karim said, gently touching Leah's face. Immediately, the woman's expression became vacant again. Don't worry about old memories. You have a job to do. Leah turned to Caroline, and when she spoke, her voice was firm and cold. Caroline, you need to surrender. It's the only way to save them. Save who? All of us, all the women here. If you don't surrender willingly, he will kill them, one by one, starting with me. Caroline looked around the cavern and saw that other women had joined the group. She recognized some of the faces from the photos she'd researched. Sarah, the German photographer, Marie, the French artist, Elena, the Spanish writer. All there, all with the same vacant expression, all awaiting her decision. What's your choice, Caroline? Karim asked. Save all these women by surrendering, or condemn them all in a futile attempt to escape. Caroline closed her eyes, feeling the weight of all those lives in her hands. She thought of Leah, the girl who had been her best friend and confidant her entire life. She thought of all the women trapped in that subterranean place, transformed into empty shells of themselves. There's a third option, a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Leah approaching, but there was something different about her. Her eyes were alert, determined, and she held something in her hands that Caroline couldn't see clearly. Leah, Karim said, his voice laced with warning. Don't do anything rash. Rash? Leah laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the cavern walls. You took my daughter. You turned her into an empty doll. There's nothing rash about what I'm about to do. Caroline then saw what Leah was holding, a military grenade with the pin already pulled. Everyone here has 5 seconds to get away from the women, Leah announced. Or we all die together. Karim recoiled, his confidence finally shaken. You wouldn't do that. You'd kill your own daughter. My daughter is already dead, Leah replied, tears streaming down her face. You killed her the moment you brought her here. Now I'm just freeing her spirit. Leah, no! Caroline screamed. But Leah had already made up her mind. She ran toward the group of armed men, the grenade still in her hand. The explosion was deafening, sending chunks of rock and metal flying throughout the cavern. In the ensuing chaos, Caroline felt someone grab her arm. It was Imran trying to pull her away from the confusion. We have to get out of here, now! But Caroline broke free, running towards Leah. Her sister was on the ground, shielding her face from falling debris. As Caroline reached her, she saw something in Leah's eyes that hadn't been there before. Genuine fear, confusion, a flicker of the person she used to be. Leah! Leah! Look at me! Leah focused on Caroline's face, and for a moment, the vacant expression vanished completely. Caroline, what's happening? Where are we? It doesn't matter. Let's get out of here. Caroline helped Leah to her feet, but her sister was weak, barely able to stand. I can't. My legs. I'll carry you. That's when Caroline saw Karim approaching, his face bloodied, but his eyes still cold and calculating. You're not going anywhere. He pointed a gun at Caroline, but before he could fire, one of the cave's support beams, damaged by the explosion, crashed down on him. Caroline heard his screams muffled by the debris. The ceiling's collapsing, Imran shouted from somewhere in the chaos. We have to get out. Caroline slung Leah's arm over her shoulders and started running towards the passages leading back to the surface. Other women followed, some still in shock, others beginning to emerge from the chemical fog they'd been trapped in. The journey back through the tunnels was a nightmare. Rocks fell constantly, and the air was thick with dust and debris. Caroline felt Leah growing heavier in her arms, her sister drifting in and out of consciousness. "Leah, stay with me," Caroline pleaded. "We're almost there." "Caroline," Leah mumbled, "I did terrible things, things they made me do. It doesn't matter. None of it matters now. But it does. I handed other women over to them. I helped lure them in. I'm a monster." "You're not a monster. You're my sister and I love you." They finally reached the mine entrance, where the sunlight had never seemed so beautiful. Caroline pulled Leah out, both collapsing onto the hot sand, gasping for the clean desert air. Imran arrived a few minutes later, followed by 3 of the other women. All seemed to be at different stages of recovery from the brainwashing they had suffered. "Leah?" Caroline asked. Imran shook his head. "She didn't make it." Caroline felt tears burning her eyes. A woman had sacrificed her life to give them a chance to escape. "And your wife, Nadia?" "She didn't make it either. But..." Imran gently touched Caroline's shoulder. "She chose to stay. When I offered to take her, she said she'd rather die down there than live with the memories of what she'd become." The journey back to civilization took 2 days. Leah was weak, but gradually started to remember who she was. The other women were in varying states of trauma and confusion, but all alive, all breathing free air for the first time in months or years. 3 weeks later, Caroline sat on the terrace of a cafe in Rabat, waiting for her flight back to the States. Leah was beside her, still fragile, but with the light returning to her eyes each passing day. "Are you sure you want to write about this?" Leah asked, watching Caroline type on her laptop. "I have to write," Caroline replied. "How many other women are still out there trapped in places like Qasr al-Sarab? How many other families are searching for missing sisters, daughters, wives? But will they believe it? It's such an impossible story." Caroline stopped typing and looked at her sister. "You're here, you're alive. That's proof enough for me." Leah smiled, the first genuine smile Caroline had seen since finding her in the desert. "I love you, Caroline. Thank you for not giving up on me. I would never give up on you." Later that night, Caroline woke from a strange dream. She had dreamed of Layla, standing in the middle of the desert, smiling and waving. Beside her was a young woman Caroline didn't know, but knew intuitively to be Claire. "Thank you," Layla had said in the dream. "Thank you for saving those who could be saved." Caroline got up and went to the hotel window, looking towards the desert. Somewhere out there, the sands had swallowed the secrets of Qasr al-Sarab, but not completely. There were stories to be told, truths to be revealed, and other women to be saved. She returned to her laptop and continued writing. Each word was a promise. To Layla, to Nadia, to Claire, to all the women who had been silenced by the desert sands. Their voices would not be forgotten. The article would be published in a week, and Caroline knew it would change her life forever. There would be threats, attempts to discredit her story, pressure to keep quiet. But she would not be silenced. Because some truths are too big to be buried, even under the weight of the Sahara sands. And some promises are too sacred to be broken, even in the face of fear. Ana Santana, who was once just a book editor from Los Angeles, had become someone else during those days in the desert. Someone who had looked evil in the eye and hadn't blinked first. Someone who had walked through the valley of the shadow of death and emerged on the other side with her humanity intact. She continued writing until dawn, the words flowing like water in the desert, carrying with them the secrets that had been buried for so long. And when she finally finished, She placed her hands on the silver necklace she still wore around her neck, Leah's necklace, which had become a symbol not of loss, but of hope. Some stories need to be told, some truths need to be revealed, and some promises, the promises we make to the people we love, are stronger than any force on earth, more enduring than any palace built on lies, deeper than any tunnel dug in the sands of time. Caroline and Leah's story was over, but the story of all the other women still waiting to be found, that story was just beginning.